the paging on some of the other data there. So I want to add here a new project to the one, or you can create a new one. That's fine, no problem. So that should be an ASP.NET application. I'll just call it the Web API. API, that's fine. I just do it from the empty part just to show that once more. So closing all the old documents. So since we know we want to use the MVC framework, I just include that. ASP.NET Core dot MVC, this one here, and take the newest version. That's one thing. We also need the database. What is it? So if you run into that problem, you can always go and we need that interface to MySQL. So I can go here and manage my NuGet packages. Go here and search for MySQL, and then find the one I need here. That's this one here. Pomelo. That's the one we have been using. So I just click on that one and say, click on that. So
that means we have to, for each project we have to download this one, and instead of why we don't download it for the
so when you have a new project where you need to access and use the entity framework, then you have to include the entity framework.
Can you just download it for the whole when it's going to be included anyway?
No.
It's like a package. Okay.
No, that's also the switch in paradigm of development. That's not here. That's instead of having, these packages you have to find yourself everywhere. You have this package manager, so you can just get it whenever you need it. So,
okay.
So that's the way of working with the stuff nowadays. That you have a definition. The nice part is that you can, because if you want, you can have a specific version here, and then you can have another application over in another version. And they don't rely on some global information about the data. You can have different versions, so that's why.
Okay.
It's easier to maintain over time because you have the version number in each and every single, so you can always restore the project to the right. With the right version of all the dependencies, instead of having that the dependencies is part of the environment somewhere, but when I move it from your machine to my machine with Git, I need to have all these environments up and running in order to run it, and that's, if I don't have it, it will not run, and I don't know why, because it just that's the reason. So we don't want to depend on the environment. We want to have all the information inside every single project, so we don't have that dependency, because it becomes annoying over time. So now we have what we need. We have the entity framework, so we can get some data. We have the MVC. In order to get MVC up and running, we have to do first here. We have to say app use MVC. That's fine. And then we want to have the service. We need to instantiate the MVC service. So on services we want to add MVC. So that's the only setup you have to do on the project for now, in order to do a web API. That's pretty much what you have to do. Then what we want here, should probably do it. Yeah, I will do it the right way. So I add a new project here. It's just what I normally will do. Yeah, I will put the database. No, I do it the right way, because then you get an example of not the right way, but a common way to do it. So I want to add a library, and that library should be my domain model. So that's the model I want to work with inside my web API. So that's the internal representation. So that will where I have movies and persons and stuff. The definition of the objects that I have in my domain. So that will be the domain. I just delete this class here because I don't need that one. And then if I want to work with category, so I just add a class here. So I define my category. So if we look, yeah, I know I did a spelling stuff here. So if you look at the database, so you all install this Nordwind database, or at least we talked about it, and it's available. We have categories here. So you see categories have ID, name, and description. We have looked at this before, so I just make a property so that's an integer, should be an ID, and a property that's a string, that is the name. So that's my internal representation of the categories in the database. So that's my object that matches the relation in the database. So I have this in my domain model. So I create another thing, a new project here. So that's it's also a library. I call that my database service. And then delete this class here. This is just something that's me. So that's where I want to, so I have a project for my database, I have a project for my domain model, and so so that's two different things. It could be the same, but that means that I could have other implementation of the database that is not necessary. But the domain is the domain; it will not change. The domain doesn't have nothing to do with the data, the specific database. It's just the objects I want to have inside my application. So in order to work with this one, I have to take this one, because I have to use the entity framework not here anymore, but over in my database service instead. Dependencies. So now I have one project where I isolate the database access, one where I have the domain model, and then I have my web service. So the idea is not to put everything into the same bucket, but have it in different places, so it's easier to understand, especially easier to understand for everybody else who needs to know if it has to do with the domain model. Everything about the domain model is in one single place, and it's just a separate project, but it's easy to use that. So inside if I look at the references on the data service, I can add a reference. I can say, okay, I need the domain model. So the data service needs to know about the domain model. So what it did was just adding the domain model here to my project. So now the data service knows about the domain model, so it can use that project. So whatever as inside the domain model. This is accessible from within inside the data service. The same I can do on my web application. I just have to set this as a startup project. I can add a reference here, and I need both the data service and the domain model inside my web application, because they are using, it will be using both. It will work with the domain model, and it will use the data service to get the data. So on the data service, I want to add a new class. That will be my Nordwind context. That will be the database definition from Entity Framework, and it should use the database context. The first thing I need to do is to tell this data context to run on MySQL server. So I do that by overriding the on configuration, and on this option builder, I just use MySQL, and inside here I give it the connection string. That's the one where I said server equal local host database. We have done this before, so database equal whatever database, in this case Nordwind. That's the part I have over here in my database. So it should be the database is running on the local host, and this is the database Nordwind, and then the user ID, that's whatever your user ID, and the password the same. So now this database, now the Entity Framework knows what database it should use. So it needs to know it should be MySQL, and it also know what database on the MySQL server that it should accept with the right information about the user. So that's the first part. So now that's up and running.
Henrik, I have a question. How did you override this method?
By this method here.
Yeah.
But by adding this part here.
Okay.
This part will override the give you this. Without that one, it doesn't know anything about MySQL. Okay, I'll just do a commit here so we can have that. So.
What about this password and username? If you want to work with a group in your code and you don't want to show.
Yeah, then you will not work on the local host, but
No.
on a server.
Yeah.
We have, but eventually, what you want to do, you don't want to have it as part of the GitHub code. So what you will do, you will put it into a JSON file,
Yeah.
and then you will read that into your application when you start up, and then that JSON file will not be part of your. You will ignore that in Git, so it will not be on Git because it will be only on the local machine. But right now it's not a big problem because the only way to access the database is on the backside of the VPN, and so it's not a big deal. So you just share, get either one of your accounts on the database or get a group account to the database and then use that one, and then use the same account. But in the real environment, you don't want to have that kind of information in the source version control recipe. So you put it in a JSON file and then read that into that's pretty easy. Just Google .NET Core and then read the JSON file. It's very simple. You just it have all the stuff that needs to. So you can just point to a JSON file, and then you get something. It will read the JSON file, and then you can access it like a dictionary with the information you get in. So you can say username if you have something like that in the object that's in the JSON file. Then you can access the username and the password and so on. But then it will never be part of the versioning system.
Yes.
So we want to have a database, also be public here. We want to have a property for the category. So that category is from our domain model. So you can see here it's using the domain model. And the name should be categories get set. That's the property. If you look at the database, what the AT framework will do is actually look for a table called categories, because that's the name here. But we don't have the name categories over here. It's called category in the database. So we have to tell that. So we have to override on the unmodeling. We also did examples of that when we work with the. So you can on the model builder you can say entity for the category should to table, and then you can tell what table it should be. So like this. So it's pointing to the right table. So now we have that up and running. We have the context. We also want to have. So now we want to have a service like